Hello everyone and welcome back to another instalment of the Warwick F1 Show. We have done our first race back since the summer break in Zandvoort. Not the most exciting race, but fear not, because we are going into, I think for me, one of the most exciting tracks on the F1 calendar. It is the home of speed, the Ferrari home circuit. It is Monza, and a circuit that I think always delivers. We've had so many memorable moments there, like Ricciardo and Gasly's win, for example, and we go into a Monza which I think is all up for grabs and really couldn't be more exciting, with different potential winners. We have, obviously, coming out of last race, we know that McLarens are going to be strongest, but really we could see any of the teams such as Red Bull, maybe even Ferrari getting another home win, as like Leclerc did a few seasons ago. I'm your host, Callum. I'm joined once again by Chinmay, and we're just going to take the next 20 minutes to discuss what we can expect, I think, from this Monza circuit, and also do our predictions as well. So the first thing we should mention is we always like to go into kind of any different changes that there might be to the circuit, and not many this season compared to last, but we do know the circuit has been resurfaced, and this means essentially that the tyres are going to be a lot harder to manage, and the tyres will gain temperature a lot easier and retain temperature a lot easier. And Chinmay, you mentioned that might be quite a problem for the Mercedes going into this race in terms of managing their tyres, as that car might struggle a bit more than other teams, didn't you?
Yes, so Mercedes is either one or two things are going to happen, because especially, like we said, it's a resurfaced track. I don't know how much it's been running just yet. Have we got any feeder series happening this weekend as well?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Because normally we have, because that might be a difference. But the thing is, this new surface is all about is going to be able to retain heat a lot more easily, and especially with that Mercedes, one of its main weaknesses is tyre overheating relative to the other three front runners. So it's going to be an interesting one to see where they stand, because obviously, again, we also talk about new surface as well, where normally it's a lot more harder to actually get the tyre to heat up as well. So it could be a mixed blessing. It could just mean that the Mercedes is just good at firing up the tyres on the track where there's going to be less grip. But then I've just looked as well, we've got Formula 2 going this weekend in Monza anyway, so the track is going to be running quite a lot this weekend anyway. So yeah, I reckon tyre heating might be a bit of an issue, especially considering we're going to be seeing high track temperatures this weekend as well. It's going to be 34 this weekend in Monza. So yeah, Red Bull might struggle as well, considering especially their grip sliding, but I don't
you
think
said Piastri. We said Piastri as well, because we know that maybe he's one of the drivers that might have a little bit, just because of obviously his inexperience in the sport as well. We shouldn't judge him too much on it, but he does sometimes have a bit of an issue in managing his tyres and maybe keeping his tyre temperatures under control, and so that means that we might favour Norris in this race above Piastri, like we saw in Zandvoort, for example.
That's true as well, but don't forget Monza is not generally a high tie deck track as well. Normally we see a lot of one-stoppers in this race if nothing chaotic happens. So we'll have to see in there, but I still, even though I will still favour Norris, because Norris is also very good at Monza. So,
well, a lot of as we talk, I've only just realising that a lot of these points are just directing towards Norris, as we know that the McLaren is the fastest car from Zandvoort, and I think it's pretty safe to say that we can expect McLaren to also be the fastest car around this circuit. The car looks so strong and really in a position where it can perform at any track, and the Red Bulls need to seriously respond, I think, in this race. It's an important race for Red Bull, I think, now for this race. Obviously, last race in Zandvoort, it was important for both Red Bull and McLaren, both of them, see who could get the edge. It's now, I think, in Red Bull's hands of it's up to them to respond and seeing how they can respond to what has been probably one of their poorest weekends in the last few seasons. They were completely demolished on pure pace alone. Nothing really went against them, more so over the McLarens. It was a pure pace difference between Norris and Verstappen, leading to that plus 20-second gap that we saw come the end of the race. And Horner has already said that Red Bull have to respond. And I don't know, Chinmay, obviously we'll get into your predictions a little later on, but do you think Red Bull do have the capacity to respond in this race, or can you just easily see it going to McLaren?
Realistically, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, only because it's a brand new track surface, and especially with Verstappen historically been complaining a lot about tyre grip in general, and he does seem to be having to fight that car a lot more than usual at the moment, and especially considering we're going to see McLaren at one of the, especially in recent years, one of the strongest tracks. I really think this might be a track where McLaren just really run away with the win, to be honest. I don't think so. There's going to be a very interesting fight at the very front, in my opinion, but definitely just behind it, it's going to be quite interesting to see. And
yes, certainly.
Perez as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we'd be more expecting Norris to run away with this race compared to Zandvoort. Again, like you mentioned, the nature of the circuit, how promising this track has been for McLaren in the past. Moving down the grid, we obviously move on to the Ferraris and the Mercedes. We already mentioned that Mercedes might be at a bit of a disadvantage because of the track resurfacing as well. And I suppose if the Red Bulls aren't going to be challenging the McLarens, we maybe expect that the Ferraris aren't really going to be up there either. Maybe it would require quite a bit of luck and fortune if Ferrari are anywhere near looking at some sort of win. Obviously, they're going to be really wanting that as it's their home race, but do you think that they'd be at least able to challenge Red Bull, or is Red Bull still a little bit further ahead of them in that respect?
I think Red Bull are still just that little bit further ahead, because yes, we're saying that the Red Bull's fallen off, but it's still, I think, it's still one of the fastest cars on the grid. It's just they haven't been able to develop that car as much, and we just talk about McLaren all the time. I do think Red Bull just had that, and especially with the combination with Verstappen, I think it might be seen as McLaren. Red Bull just a little bit ahead.
Yeah, and maybe they can challenge Perez a little bit. I think maybe Verstappen is a little too out of reach, which is reflected in my predictions, as we'll see in a minute. But yeah, I think the pecking order for Monza might be quite similar to what we see in Zandvoort. But unless we can think of anything else going into next weekend, we'll move straight on to our predictions. Now, if you haven't joined us before for our predictions going into each race, we run a format where essentially we take it in turns to have priority on who we pick first. We can't pick the same person first each time. And it has thankfully fallen to me to pick first placed first. And I've gone with Norris, which I think, as we're talking, it seems like the obvious choice. The McLaren car at the moment seems miles ahead of the Red Bull car, and everything seems to be in McLaren's hands for this race. They are the expected, for probably once in what's been a real while now, we are actually saying that McLaren are the expected winners, unlike what we say for Verstappen for the past few seasons. It's a very odd position to say that we're in, but I think Norris can get the job done as he did in Zandvoort. I do expect the car to be as dominant compared to in Zandvoort as I think it will be in Monza. And I've gone with Verstappen P2 then. I think Verstappen will still be up there. I'm certainly going to put him in my top 5, and I think, as he has done in previous races, will drag that Red Bull car up. I put then Leclerc third. I realise I've actually gone with the same podium as Zandvoort, but I'll go with it anyway. Leclerc P3, Piastri P4, so the same top four actually. And I've gone with Hamilton P5, where obviously we'll go through Chinmay and Catch. Catch unfortunately couldn't be here today, but both Chinmay and Catch's predictions, I don't think there's a single Mercedes in sight. I've gone with Hamilton P5. I think if he can get a good qualifying, unlike in Zandvoort, he will be able to get up there and challenge with the McLarens and the Rebels, perhaps over George Russell. And so I thought I'd put him in there compared to Sainz. So that's my top five. And I think I'll run through just my 1, 2, and 3 very quickly. I think I've said for my 1 point prediction that a driver straight lines the turn 1 chicane. I think that can be expected. You can easily see someone.
I think we'll get there within 10 minutes.
Yeah,
in
F1, which is why it's a 1 point prediction, so that's fine. In my 2 point prediction, now I need to explain this one to Jimmy because I realise I haven't actually told you what my predictions are before the recording. I said that a Ferrari driver speaks Italian to the Tifosi in the post-race interview. Now, the reason I think that's a 2 point prediction is, first off, you've got to have one of the Ferraris on the podium for that to happen.
Yeah.
Which I have obviously reflected in my 1st to 5th place. And then they've got to speak Italian, which I think they will do, but I think it's maybe a 2 point prediction to have expect a Ferrari up there.
To be honest, though, you're just predicting a Ferrari podium.
Yeah, I thought I'd like to spice it up a little bit with the wording. Do you think that's maybe too...
It might be a bit too lean, I can't lie, because both drivers, I believe, are fluent in Italian. Sainz also speaks Italian. I think Sainz will also speak Italian, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe if you take it to a top 2, I'll allow it.
Top 2, okay. So Ferrari driver goes to the top 2, gets into the top 2, and speaks Italian to the Tifosi.
Yeah.
We're gonna update that one.
Because Leclerc will automatically speak Italian, but if I am not mistaken, I think Sainz actually does speak a little bit of Italian. So,
okay, fair enough.
So
okay,
yeah,
we'll run with the top 2 then, and then for my 3 point prediction, I'll check this with you as well. I said one driver does a 4-stop.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll take that one.
So maybe, well, not that I think we'll be expecting some rain, but maybe if there's a bit of carnage, a bit of crashes, which is probably not the best thing to be predicting after a race in Zandvoort where we did not have a single yellow flag, but I keep my optimism, and we'll say that one driver does a 4-stop for any reason, whether carnage related, whatever, they stop 4 times before the end of the race. Chinmay, you're next to pick, so if you wanted to tell the people listening what you went for your first place. Yeah,
so I've just gone Piastri first because I think Piastri will be in the top 5. This is more of a tactical first place than anything else, really. Actually, no, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to take Verstappen. Who do you put first again?
I put Norris.
Yeah, I'll take Verstappen first then.
Okay, and then you're going to put, what, Piastri 5th?
I'll put Piastri 4th, actually. So I'm just kind of changing this on the fly. So I'm going to go for Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz.
Okay.
That's going to be my thing. So, yeah.
Do you think maybe you would have picked Norris if you could have? Or are you actually having faith in Verstappen? Okay,
comfortably.
That was very quick.
Yeah. Then my 1, 2, 3 pointer. So my 2 pointer is going to be different to my predictions for the 1, 2. I go for a race winner does not get pole position. So there's a pole. The pole and race winner are different.
I can see that happening. That's fair enough.
No, because there's quite a habit of that happening in Monza. Then weirdly, my 2 pointer is a bit so contradictory to my podium predictions. So at least I've covered myself on two bases here.
Yeah, covering bases.
So I have got a 1-2 finish for some constructor.
So more expecting that from, I think, McLaren more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Red Bull perhaps not because of obviously Perez, and then any other team doesn't seem to have that good of a chance at beating either the McLarens or the Red Bulls when they're both finishing, obviously, unless something terrible happens to them. But that's a pretty good 2-point prediction, a 1-2 finish, and then your 3-point prediction.
I want to say you're going to find all 4 engine suppliers in the top 7.
So that's Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda with Red Bull, and then the Alpine engine, essentially.
Yeah, the Renault. So, yeah.
And, we mentioned that that's a 3-point prediction because that's requiring essentially an Alpine to get into the top 7, which is quite a tall order.
Very unlikely.
Very, very unlikely. Even though they have been doing very well in the previous few races compared to how they started off. Obviously, Gazzy got a very good P9, but P7, that's kind of encroaching on the territory of the big 4, and so I think that would be very surprising. So yes, no, that's very good. And then I'll read out Catches, as unfortunately she couldn't be here today. But so hang on a minute. So Catch went with a surprising Sainz first place, which I find very surprising. I thought that the obvious choice would be to either go with Verstappen and then the 2 McLarens as the third places. Catch has gone with Sainz, which I think I'd really like to. Maybe I think Catch was predicting with their head rather than their heart. Their heart rather than their head, I should say. Because I think I'd certainly like to see a Sainz win, especially in his last season for Ferrari. Then Catch has gone with Piastri second, Leclerc third, so both Ferraris getting on the podium. I think that would be an incredible result for them. Norris fourth and Verstappen fifth. I'm not sure whether that's perhaps a tactical Verstappen and Norris fifth and fourth, perhaps. Or maybe they do think that Ferraris will have some very good pace in Monza. We shall have to see. Their 1-point prediction is that Perez doesn't make Q3, which I'm not sure if I can see that. I mean, he's done quite well. I don't know what you think about this, Chinmay, but he did quite well, I think, in qualifying compared to how he has done in Zandvoort. And I don't know, is Catch being a little too harsh on herself with that prediction?
Maybe. I would definitely say it's more of a 2-pointer because, Perez is. He did show some signs of improvement, but again, it's only been one race since the summer break, so
we might be getting ahead of ourselves here in Perez's newfound qualifying pace. But we'll keep it. Catch is not here to argue the other side, so I suppose we'll keep that. 2-point prediction was a new qualifying lap record set on the Saturday, which I think is quite interesting. I think it's quite an interesting one. And then 3-point prediction. Catch, similarly to me, wanting a bit of chaos, which I think we could all do with after, as we mentioned, quite a uneventful race in Zandvoort. 5 DNFs, and I think that'll be 5+ DNFs, pretty much.
Probably, so we'll give it 5+.
Either from engine retirements or crashes, things like that. But less than 15 drivers, or 15 or less drivers finishing the race.
Yeah. I can't lie, those are some quite difficult predictions to get because a new qualifying lap record, especially with these cars, they are slower than the 2020 spec cars. So
yes, it will be. It'll be quite a tall order. But I mean, who knows? McLaren car is obviously looking strong, and we're yet to find out how those upgrades are going to improve on a high-speed circuit such as Monza. But we will have to see how those predictions get on after the Italian Grand Prix next weekend. Is there anything we've missed, Chinmay? Are there any mentions or drivers that we haven't mentioned going into this race? I think we've covered it pretty much all very well.
Yeah, I think. Let's see. Let's wait for Monza this weekend and hope for a good race. Please let there be no DRS trains. That's all right. Then it's a good race.
Yeah, that's what we can avoid. If we can avoid the DRS train, then we can maybe hope for some exciting racing. I do have quite a lot of optimism. I do really like Monza. I'm actually not going to be able to see it live, unfortunately, because I'm working, which I am devastated at. As well as Man United Liverpool, which I'm also devastated at. But I shall have to catch those two on replays. But we hope you all enjoy the Italian Grand Prix. We certainly will all be looking very much forward to it, and I do think it's going to be a very exciting one with such a tight battle at the front. But until then, make sure to also check out our Zandvoort review that we've just done, going over our predictions from last time and talking about the events of that one, with say Norris obviously getting that stupid lead over Verstappen and so on and so forth. But until next time, thank you very much, Chinmay, for joining me. I've been your host, Callum, and until next time, goodbye.